Hey everyone! Ready for more Unreal Learning topics? This month, 4 new courses arrived on the Unreal Online Learning portal. Explore the fundamentals of the material editor to assemble master materials, harness the power of audio in tandem with dynamic game events and conditions, create VR walkthroughs of architectural visualizations, and find out how to teach core school subjects with the help of Fortnite Creative. Visit unrealengine.com/online learning to start today. Want to know why filmmakers are flocking to real-time? Join co-founder of FX Guide and director of the Modus Research Lab, Mike Seymour, together with award-winning speakers from Stargate Studios, Happy Mushroom, and Epic Games to explore how production and post are merging at the beginning of the pipeline, with experts deploying new ways of creating and managing content. Episode 2 of The Pulse, Virtual Production, The Transition to Real-Time Filmmaking, debuts September 9th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Register now and participate in the live Q&A. If you're a Mutant Year Zero fan, get ready for even more time with Dux, Borman, and the gang. Directed by indie filmmaker Hazref Hasdalul, the full-length animated action-adventure film will feature the dark, post-apocalyptic future as the mutant band of misfits search for Eden. Now to celebrate our top weekly Karma earners, many thanks to Clockwork Ocean, Every Nun, Churer, Stuck Compiling, Okari, Crewdimer, B3P, T. Sumisaki, Shadow River, and Pavi Pavi. Heading over to our fun and helpful community spotlights, first we recommend you checking out Game Dev Pantry from Lucid Tales. In their tutorial series, the Montreal-based 5-person team of graduates reverse engineer game mechanics such as the grappling hook from Sekiro and the telekinesis powers from Control. Check out the Lucid Tales YouTube page for all of their episodes. For the French speakers in the audience, be sure to follow Evans Bull on YouTube. The French-Polynesian teacher hosts several tutorials on Unreal Engine and general game development topics ranging from character creation to level design and VFX. And we're closing this week out with an impressive Batman fan film created by Hans der Torst. Reallusion hosts a thorough interview with Hans on their blog where you can learn what inspired him to create the film, how he's building his characters, animations, and so much more. Read the full interview and watch his test videos to see his workflows in action. Thanks for watching this week's news and community spotlight.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I'm your host, Victor Broden, and today my guests are from the amazing team at Terrible Posture Games. Let me introduce to you Joseph Mirabello, CEO and founder.
Hello.
Nolan Eckerman, senior engineer. And Chris Sukowski, who I will be referring to as Suko for the remainder of the stream. Technical director. Welcome to Inside Unreal.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Do you want me to tell you a little bit about the studio real quick?
That's what I was going to ask you to do.
Awesome, sure. So Terrible Posture Games has been around for a few years now. Our first game was a game called Tower of Guns, which is pretty much a solo project. And then we grew up a little bit and we made a follow-up game called Mother Gunship, which we co-developed with a studio named Grip Digital. And then after Mother Gunship, we began growing again and started working on a bit of a different project, which is called 3 out of 10. And 3 out of 10 is a little bit strange for us. We were used to making randomized first-person shooters, which is what Tower of Guns and Mother Gunship both were. But 3 out of 10 is essentially a playable sitcom. It is a heavily narrative-based show, really, with gameplay interjected about the world's worst video game studio ever, where this game studio has never made a game that has ever scored better than 3 out of 10. We're releasing these episodes, this game in episodes for free on the Epic Game Store every single week. There's another episode, and they're released in very bite-sized, lunch break-sized experiences, about 30 minutes a play session. And the 4th episode just released, like an hour and a half ago, or 2 hours ago, something like that. Very, very recently. So you can play all 4 of the current episodes, and then another episode will be released next week. So yeah, if you want to real quickly show the trailer, Victor, I'd love to show people what it's about.
Yeah, let's go ahead and play it.
Morning, Ben. Lovely day, isn't it?
Morning, Joan. Yeah, holy man, what the hell? Y'all know there's a big-ass dinosaur in the middle of the office?
So it's an endless runner, but the twist is, wait for it, there's an end.
What's the problem? It looks fine.
It looks fine. It looks fine. Gah! I'm gonna go floss my eyeballs.
You'll get used to it, Viper.
Circle up, everyone. We announced Surfing with Sharks today. Reception has been wonderful. The internet loves it. That's totally not true, but it's good for morale to tell you that.
The new Sharkbash file name was temp_final_final2_complete.
Ah, the naming convention of an experienced developer, I see. See that counter up there? That's tied to an algorithm in order to create a predictor of our expected score.
It says 2 out of 10. That's terrible.
It is.
Just get the damn keys already.
Is there a video tutorial about this somewhere?
Just reach out and grab them.
With a shovel?
What the fuck? Do you even see a shovel?
Byline! Francine, I need you to hold all my calls for the next half hour.
Sure.
I'm signing things. Sign to the left, sign it to the right, gonna sign this shit. Woo!
Jeb does this sometimes.
This project is different. This game will be a hit.
I've never seen that number go up before.
I don't know. I thought it was a cool announcement trailer.
Yeah, it was something, all right.
All right. Every time I see that, I find it almost even more fun to watch it every time.
Thanks. Yeah, we've had a lot of fun making this game, and as you can see, it's a little bit visually, it's a little bit different for an Unreal game. It's this heavy mix of 2D and 3D, and because it is kind of made like this combination of show and game, we've had to really kind of explore a lot of one, a lot of building our own custom stuff, and then two, a lot of using what's in Unreal in really kind of creative and unique ways. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit today. Each episode is kind of divided into three main pieces, three real branches that make up an episode. And those are the cutscenes, which every episode has a significant number of cutscenes. Then an explore phase, which is kind of more like an old adventure point-and-click game of yore, and then actual mini games. And we wanted to make a tech that kind of tied all these things together and allowed us to really iterate quickly. We needed to build these episodes as fast as possible, so we spent a lot of time figuring out how to essentially iterate quickly. So we're not going to talk too much about the game stuff, because that's probably the most conventional Unreal path, and that we follow a lot of standard Unreal processes and tech there. Instead, we'll be diving mostly into the animation systems that we've been leveraging, and then the character system. So, you know, Unreal, while they've got a lot of tools, we want to really emphasize showing you what's different about 3 out of 10, which is this cool blend of 3D and 2D. That said, we're going to be talking about what it takes to actually make an episode, and why we kind of built things the way that we did. And we actually do quite a bit. We actually do pretty much everything in Engine. We skipped out on a lot of traditional animation tools and did a lot of stuff directly in the engine, and that includes the animation work, the rigging work, the compositing, the editing. We'll talk about this more later, but we did this all for iteration, and then all for being able to work parallel. Again, everything you're going to be hearing throughout today is how we were leveraging how to make these episodes, how we were leveraging the skills we had to be able to set ourselves up to make an episode as fast as possible. So that said, we'll be talking about mostly one scene and kind of dissecting it and pulling it apart and going from script to final. This is a scene from last week's episode where the team gets into an office-wide battle royale with foam dart guns. So Zuko, do you want to actually play the scene real quick so people can see what we'll be talking about?
Yeah. First off, can you guys hear that?
More than I have to.
Yep. Yes.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Just wanted to make sure.
Looks like they haven't renovated this area in a while.
So, have you thought about how you'd propose changes to Jeb?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. The winner has to propose their idea to Jeb? No one said anything about that.
It's not like we can just change the game without getting him on board.
We do that all the time.
True, but this time Jeb asked about it, so we've got to talk to him about what we want to do.
I actually don't want to do that.
No?
I don't like to talk to Jeb any more than I have to. And I don't care that much about this.
I thought you wanted more blood in Surfing with Sharks.
No amount of violence makes talking to Jeb enjoyable. Might as well shoot me now.
What?
That's right, shoot me.
Stop joking around.
Oh, what? Never shot anyone in a foam dart battle royale before? This your first time?
First, I think Pylon said it was a scuffle royale. And sure, like, all the time.
Lies! Shoot me, you coward!
No!
Shoot me!
I can't. We're on the same team.
I'm pivoting. I quit the team. Shoot me.
No.
Shoot me, damn you!
Get away from me!
Coward! I'll find you! And make you shoot me.
All right, so we've got a lot of stuff going on in that scene. There's a lot of cool animation tech going on, and to give you kind of an overview, I'll be doing a little bit of talking, but most of the talking is going to be done by Zuko, the tech director, and Nolan, our senior engineer. But to kind of give you an overview, we're going to be talking about how the scene starts with the script, how we auto-generate as much as possible, a little bit about how we create levels and connect everything together. And then we'll be deep diving into some of the tools that we've made or are leveraging from Unreal, including some cool rigging and manipulator tools, and really creating a cool, unique approach to animation. And then at the end, hopefully we'll have some time for some Q&A so you all can kind of ask us more information. But that said, we may also answer things as we go, as things come up. I also want to mention that this particular scene has the voice actor in the chat right now hanging out with us. So if you want to pipe up there, Schwalbe, and say hello. Not only is he in the scene, but he's actually every character in this scene himself, which is kind of fun. But anyway, right. So that said, do you want to
I can take it from here.
Dive into the dissection of the scene a little?
Yeah, so we'll just kind of do a high-level overview of this first, because I believe we're going to jump into it a little bit more in detail. But the whole entire scene is in a 2D, 3D mix, so our rigs on the characters are all 2D. We will go over that more too. And we use Sequencer to drive our cutscenes. So everything in this scene, we have our characters being added to the scene from a pool, which they kind of just live below the world somewhere. Oh, they're over there. They're far away. And everything inside of this now is being driven by rigs inside of Unreal on Sequencer. So you can see if I scrub around, the animators actually use this Sequencer to drive all the animation. So if I kind of dive in here, you can see we have the ability to add attachments onto everything. When you click on the attachment, you get like a little manipulator to move it around. There's also the each character has their own specific rig, so I can go ahead and like move the character around and get them in place. And you can see it's pretty complex that the animator has a lot of power. They have a lot of power to control a lot of different regions. So our rigs, they span quite the vertical space on Sequencer with all the keys that animators use to drive it. And they use like a little animation helper, which we can talk about more as well. But the whole point of this is just kind of showing you the outline of what the scene entails. So if I go to the part where like he's saying shoot me a bunch. Yeah, so like right here, that's fine. I can turn on the camera cuts. We can see that the animators will also key each camera. We decided to go with one camera. We know that like Sequencer has like multiple camera cuts, but for us, it was just easier to just kind of key when we needed to do a shot and just copy the keys over. Then also we have subscenes, which all of these will be, these are kind of like the lip syncing, and it's separated a bit. So we have our main animation for like right here is Viper's main animation. Then later we'll actually have the sub track here control the dialogue. And all of this stuff is separated so that we can do lip syncing and all that stuff in tandem with actual animation.
Oh, what? Never shot anyone in a foam dart battle.
And you're in non-audio mode right now, right, Zuko?
I thought I was in audio mode.
We hear.
Oh, okay, cool, great.
Yeah. No,
Cool.
I can hear it.
What? Never shot anyone.
So yeah, So you can actually see
Never
like
shot anyone in
that
a
we have
foam
keys
dart
for
battle
each different
royale
part of the lip
before.
syncing process. Then I believe on top of this we have the attachments are also in here, and then the audio team has their own separate section as well, where they can go in and they have their entire setup of individual audio actors that they can use to place around in the screen or in the scene to actually like spatialize and get things to sound like on the left or right, or and actually organize it to their needs. So they can see in here, you can kind of see in here, we have some stuff for Viper where we can trigger like his actual footsteps and rustle sounds. All that stuff is kind of handled in a system where we can place all this stuff. And all this stuff like you're seeing here can be edited and is edited real time inside of Unreal. We don't go into Maya for any of this. And that was a huge win for us, because basically what you see here is what I just showed you when I hit play. There's no real difference in most cases. There might be like one-off things here and there where like effects might look different if they play. But other than that, the main really important stuff, how the shot looks, where the characters are, the lighting is all in the scene and ready to go and composited the way we want it to look. So, yeah, I believe that pretty much is the main stuff we wanted to talk about there.
Kind of the overview, and we'll get into a little bit more of these different pieces in detail. We'll be deep diving into some of the different tools, and also into the general 2D hybrid approach itself, because there is a lot leaning on paper 2D, and there's a lot of cool custom stuff. So we'll get into that. That was just kind of a high level. Here's what a scene looks like. But if you want to switch over to the script, we can kind of start from the beginning and about what an episode is involved with.
Yeah, let me
what is
change
involved
over
in
to
an
the
episode.
full screen here.
Sure.
Cool. So now you should see my taskbar. And then, yeah, so this is where Nolan's going to talk about the script.
I'm going to talk briefly,
yeah,
just
sure,
kind of
first.
overview of it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right. So, okay, this is the script, which may look pretty boring, and it is. But this is where the episode starts.
Hang on
everything.
one moment. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
Zuko's stream is not coming through on my end.
Oh, because it switched.
Let's see. I'm only seeing loading Discord squares.
Do you want to stop streaming and stream again, Zuko?
Let me see if I can. See if I can.
Because I see it on my
stop
end.
And stop again. It's not working.
I can kill it and try it again.
Yeah, let's try that. Let's try that.
How's that?
There we go. Awesome.
Cool.
Cool. Right. So this is the script. You can see we even have little thumbnails for storyboards in there. We essentially, everything starts here. This script is not just a place where we record the story. This is actually where the brain of everything for the entire episode happens. We have a lot of, not necessarily logic in here, but we do have kind of a roadmap for how all the auto generation happens. And we realized if we're going to build these things quick, we were going to need to emphasize, lowering the iteration time on managing all the refinement of the episode. 2, parallelizing as much as possible so that people could be working in tandem. And then 3, auto-generating as much as possible. And so as much as possible, we have the decisions and the roadmap for what scenes get connected to what HBO stuff gets connected in here. And that's what Nolan's going to be talking about. But essentially, we'll start writing here, format everything from there on, and kind of designate where the games are going to be, where you're going to jump into an explore phase, and kind of the high level objectives of the episode. And from there, we can pass it off to Nolan to talk about generation.
Sure. Yeah. So, like Joe was saying, this is where he starts. This is kind of the beginning of an episode. He opens up, does all the writing, everything. Once he's satisfied with that, he hands it off to me, and it's pretty much just a blank script. And there's several tools that we actually added into Google Sheets. Yes, you can see right there where Zuko's hovering, just like different scripts, things to help just validate for common errors, do a lot of auto population. The first column, just like a bunch of row IDs, just generates all that to make sure avoid hand errors that would happen when your hands set things up. The overall idea of all this was to try and make the iteration time as fast as possible, right? We wanted to make it so that the time you actually spend setting up a new episode, there's not really much downtime. That way, animators and artists, everybody who wants to work on it, isn't waiting on a new creation. Don't have to like stagger a ton between the different episodes. So just trying to make it as fast as possible. So as you can see here too, if you scroll to the right, Zuko, there's just paths that are set up for where the dialogue is supposed to be, where the different sequences are going to be generated. Just a lot of stuff so that eventually this gets exported into Unreal. So actually the first step though, after Joe creates a script and I generate a few things, we actually have something to export VO scripts for the voice actors. So these are formatted like a screenplay, something that the voice actors are used to. You can see this is Viper's. It highlights his role automatically. Just something to make it as easy and comfortable as possible for the voice actors, since we knew we're obviously heavily reliant on them. So there's that. And then at this point, those VO scripts are generated. Joe goes and does VO sessions with all the actors over however long that takes. Eventually, we get back audio and we import all the dialogue into the engine. As you can see here, there's a lot that Zuko's scrolling through. So now that dialogue is imported from the Google Sheet, we export a couple different CSVs. Just do a little bit of pre-processing stuff so that Unreal can handle it nicely. And as you can see, this is one. It's connected to the sound waves and everything like that. It's already got the references, scene IDs, and everything like that. So using these, now we're pretty much ready to generate the episode at this point. So now that I've got these data tables, the first thing we do is we actually generate all of the sequences that the animators are going to be using, and all the dialogue is connected to and everything. So there's about I'd say 500 to 1,000 sequences that get generated per episode, depending on how long it is.
So you can see thousands and thousands of these things across all of season 1. Doing it by hand would not have been a good idea.
Yeah. Again, a lot of this was to avoid hand generation errors. A lot of things to automatically be connected and set up. We really wanted a lot of time to be able to spend. Now. Yeah, 6,500. He said.
Yeah, that's what's in our engine right now.
Oof. Yeah, that's a lot. There's a lot, but it's basically all these are generated as a blank slate for animators and artists and anybody who needs to jump in here and do stuff, so that they can come in and everything's already set up for them. So can you open a master sequence for me, Zuko?
Yeah. I'll just grab
scene 17,
the same one.
Yeah. So
don't remind me
again, Zuko overviewed a little bit. It's what's in here, but there's a lot going on. So what we use to generate this is we actually use the Python scripting plugin for Unreal. I think that came out in 4.21 or so, last year or so. And so using that, it's pretty convenient to go in and generate a lot of different stuff for these sequences. So we've got the camera cut track that's automatically added. All the characters are set up as spawnables based on, again, this is all based on what's coming from the script. So everything that Joe wrote.
Right, on those here, we have the actual roles on the script.
Yeah. And so everything is pulled from there for all the different sequences. And then if you expand a character, can you just expand Viper, Kevin, right there? So you can see, again, here's all the different tracks. So what's cool is that all these tracks these are all automatically generated or set up and attached to that character. And this, which tracks get generated is actually specified by the rig and what the rig supports and exposes. So for different types of characters that are animated in different ways, those tracks, they'll look different, but it's all fairly automated. It's just depending on what the rig supports. So
where'd it go? There it is.
That's nice if Zuko goes and adds more support to the rig, adds more controls, adds a third arm to Kevin, something like that. You can just sync the sequences and it adds these new tracks right away, and they're immediately animatable. So
I think it's important to really quickly mention, doing this stuff by hand. This may only take the animator a minute or two to actually import and set up these tracks, maybe a few minutes, but multiply that by 6,500 sequences, and now you start to see why automation is super important for even these things that seem trivial.
Yeah, for sure. So even more so if you look at the subsequences, there's even more of these relative to the masters. So if you open one of those, Zuko, this is where each individual dialogue file gets set up. So in here, the nice segmented area, again, it's its own sequence, so that this is where we do the lip syncing. An animator comes in here and can kind of in parallel to everything else, all the other work, go through and do a whole lip syncing pass on the episode. So we'll go into that a little more with the tool that we use to do that later on. Let's see. Oh, also in there, that's automatically set up with captions. So we don't have to do anything with captions beyond what Joe writes in the script. Just a little string track. And then Zuko mentioned the audio sequence. So there's that. That's kind of the own area for the sound guys to go add sound effects, music, footsteps, anything like that, anything they want to throw into the sequence, their own little playground for that. We have things such as like sequence settings. So the game fully supports being able to fast forward, rewind, skip scenes. It's almost like a DVD or a movie or something. You can skip around. So inside of those, thanks for opening those. Yeah. So you can see we use a data asset here to actually pre-calculate the various skip times that we want, just depending on exactly how we want to space those. Whether we want it at the start of every dialogue is actually for the most part what we do right now, just so it's nice, clean moments where you fast forward and rewind to. Also a few other things, just like we store like playtime in there, just so things we might not have access to at runtime that we have at editor time. So just exposing a few of those. Let's see. You can like we've added support where you can add new characters through a right-click menu. If you want to just like show that real quick, Zuko, on the sequence.
There's so many things I keep forgetting.
Yeah. So this is
a
all
lot of cool things here.
Is this whole right-click menu? All this stuff is connected through a little bit of C++ and Python to create these dynamic menus. So basically, if we add support for new characters, they're automatically thrown in this list. You can go in and animators can add an extra if they, it's a non-speaking role, not in the script, and they want them walking by in the background or something like that. It's really easy for them to add it and animate them. So at this point, the sequences are all generated. We're ready to go with that. I still haven't like unleashed it to the animators and everybody yet. This is still just me kind of prepping, getting everything to go. At this point, I using one of the data tables again that we imported from Google Sheets. From here, again, like another menu on the right click of the scenes table, just something that again was exposed by Python. Right there, it's generate episode level. So that goes through and actually generates the entire episode framework at that point, based on the script. It goes and creates all of the different UMAP files, which is around 40 to 50 levels per episode. We use level streaming to kind of seamlessly go between different scenes and everything like that, and embedding scenes within each other. So this I think, Zuko, how long did it take you to set one of these up by hand before we did any sort of?
Probably it's probably like a day's worth of time. Yeah,
and
just
that's
getting everything connected.
Yeah, and that's if there's like no errors and stuff, right? Like that's hand setting it up already. And
can we back up a little bit, Nolan, real quick, and just describe so this just in case it isn't clear, this map right here, this is a visualization of it here, but essentially the setup phase they're talking about now is we talked to you about how the scenes themselves are set up. This is what connects the dots between the scenes and says, play scene 1, we're done, play scene 2, scene 2's done, play the explore phase or the game, now go back to scene 3, or even logic jumping back and forth between different scenes. This is that setup phase, which we also wanted to automate. So
definitely, thanks for pointing that out and everything. So yeah, I mean those different scene managers, you can see those little pink nodes, basically just the identity of different the different scenes, the different games, different explore phases, stuff like that. So this is as each of those 40 to 50 levels were generated, all the actors in those levels are basically pre-processed to establish connections between the different levels, and then kind of again make it so that we don't need to hand set up a new episode. This is all done. I think it takes about 15 minutes or so. It takes a good amount of time to actually generate new levels and saving them and everything. That's most of the time, but then it takes it shove what used to be a day's task with potential errors down to down to 15 minutes of just generating, which is really nice. And at the end of this, after you've done generating, you can now play through the episode start to finish. And obviously, there's no art. You see some of the characters, but they're just standing there. There's no animation. But it's got, it starts off, it generates a menu. It's got, the intro to the episode. It runs through the whole thing, kind of like a radio player or something. You can listen to it. You've got captions, and at the end, it goes to the leaderboard and everything. And so, it's just nice to be able to, have that whole complete framework. And then at this point, I'm pretty much done on that part. I get this all checked in, hand it off to the animators, and I guess more specifically, I hand it off to Joe first. And then Joe, if you want to take over, Joe basically does a director pass at this point.
Sure. Yeah. So I get handed back, and just so you know, there's an awful lot to Terrible Posture Games than just the three of us. There's while all this stuff is happening, the animators will start diving into lip syncing. The artists and tech artists will start diving into building up the levels. Even sound guys will be finishing up the previous episode while everyone else is diving into these ones. We kind of again have the multiple tracks going at one time. It's kind of a logistically exciting. And what I get at this point is essentially one of these sequences with no animation, and it's almost like a radio play where all of the sound files are just linked up one after each other, which for a comedic game means that you need to go in and kind of refine timing and get some delays in there, some good comedic beats, or even having people interrupt each other at times, or occasionally just you'll find a combination of dialogue lines just doesn't work, and so you'll be like, let's edit this and change things around a little bit. So that's the director phase that happens right here. I'll go in and essentially take it from being very linear to being much more like stop and start based off of where we want the comedy to be. I'll go in and add gaps, spaces, take away gaps. I'll go in and I'll take the dialogue lines and smoosh them up against each other. So what comes out of here is basically a vocal performance of the scene as if it had been, more like read naturally in a live environment, and then the animators can start animating to this, and they kind of know where everything is going to fall. So that's actually a pretty quick part of the process, but is one of the few manual parts before we hand it off for bespoke animation. This is kind of where the by hand artistry begins to happen. So Zuko, you want to kind of dive a little bit into the what else is going on during all this?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and explain kind of what we're even looking at here. Nolan kind of touched on a few of it, but I'll just jump into the actual the scene management system. So after Nolan generates everything, we pretty much get all of these levels here generated for us. These are scene levels. Then on top of that, we have geo levels. Geo levels are like supporting levels. I can't show them all in the world map, or else my machine will kind of cry a little bit. But the idea is that we actually split the scene into two different parts, and each scene has a system that I created called the Scene Manager. The Scene Manager is a node-based, like world or actor-based node system where you can kind of connect different actors together to talk to each other from scene to scene. And the way that they're linked to each other is just simply like right here. If you see the top node here, this is the Scene Manager itself, and it says, hey, I'm EO5 Scene 02, and next I'm going to go to E00 SDG Forced. For us, that's Studio Game Forced, so that's the shark game. That's what we kind of coined Studio Game. And then after that, then there's actions that can happen. Most of the actions in games most of the action in our game are cutscenes. So we'll see like play cutscene, and this is literally saying play the cutscene, and then after the cutscene finished, it'll go to the forced game. So with this, I can kind of visualize the entire episode in a tool that I created for seeing just how these links actually work with each other. So this is the entire scene map of our episode for the Battle Royale episode. So from here, I can validate whether or not a up. So we have the intro episode. I have a bunch of actions underneath the intro episode. Then I have scene 2 in action for playing the actual cutscene. Then the forced shark game, and on and on and on. It's all linked together. It's all ready to go, and it plays all the way down. If I go and scroll, I can get to the leaderboard, and then once I see the leaderboard, I know that pretty much it should be able to play from beginning to end in an entire world map. And now I think a really good way to kind of show this off. Really, the reason why we went down this like node-based structure more than anything else is because actors will kind of allow for the flexibility of just being able to sit in the world and have other things connected to it. So that's why like we can quickly set up play cutscene. We don't have to go into other blueprints and throw these nodes in all over the place. We can have a tool actually like generate all of this stuff, and that's where a lot of the automation comes in. So the scene itself, if I go back to scene 17, you can see while all of the animation is starting to ramp up everything, we also have, like I was saying, the geometry levels, like everything that requires every visual element in a level is separated. So I can just kind of like hide it. And you can see that some things aren't. So we kind of have some extra like fog post effects that kind of are added to the level on a per case basis. And I shouldn't read chat right now because it says I heard Zuko ate a penguin.
Oh no, there looks like Memories and was saying it's hard to tell where Zuko ends and Scene Manager begins, which I appreciate.
Yeah, so yeah, the entire level is we have the 3D, 2D art style. So all of the environment artists will go in, they'll place their assets that we can use in different scenes. And the reason why we split it out this way is so that way the animators have free reign over whatever else they want to add to the scene. So they don't kind of clash. It's easy with Unreal to like the levels. You can't have two people working in one level at a time yet. I'm sure in the future there might be that, but at the moment you can't have two people in the same level working. So the decision to split it out was pretty easy. Then along with that, the idea behind the animators having full control means that they can add things into this level. So what they are able to do is they can go in, and in this scene, we're back to the shoot me scene. Animators have the ability to actually add like the guns to the level, or really in this case just the guns.
Well, doors opening, windows opening,
the helmet.
Helmet. Well, the helmet is an attachment.
The helmet is actually comes with Kevin in this episode. We did this episode was kind of experimental. This was the first episode we actually got attachments working, because we wanted a way. You can in Sequencer, you can like you can attach anything to something in Sequencer simply by doing like if you add it in, you can go to here and then do attach to a binding. This is something that it can work, but for us, we needed something more controlled and something that it was easier for like an animator to kind of like get in and do stuff. So if I wanted to add an attachment in the scene, I literally just go to here, and I can go to Kevin, and well, he has like a sprite, so I can add a ketchup bottle, and now in this scene the animator has a ketchup bottle, and they can just go ahead and do whatever they need to do with the ketchup bottle. They can switch hands and all that stuff with the attachments. So
can we actually take a little sidestep here though, because like
we
leveraged this system pretty heavily in this episode, this battle royale episode. There's an explore phase where you can pick up all this different armor. You're playing as the green tech artist guy named Pylon, and what you pick up is up to you. But the rest of the episode can propagate that. So essentially, it's like suddenly we're starting to take the dynamic benefits of being real time and apply them to the cutscenes in creative visual ways. The rest of the episode, that character will have the just variety of armor you've picked up just on, which when you're speaking about just pure games, that's pretty standard. But when you're talking about the show side of it, that's something you don't really see generally in. Well, I mean, you don't really see that in shows because they're not interactive. So it's a kind of a cool little thing that came along with this system.
Right. I think that's really important to mention. So thanks. The I don't. No.
Sorry, we were actually at this point. You want to talk a little bit briefly about the scene origin, I believe, right?
Right. Yes. I was like, there's a lot of things. So getting the order correct here. So yeah, the scene origin point. This is kind of where all the stuff happened. You can see, you just saw that like I have some extra stuff in here. They're like buttons. These are editor buttons that you can use with custom events. But this kind of was old stuff before the we got the editor utility widget system. So you can see that was what like the scene manager tool that I showed was. So thankfully the editor utility widgets are basically lifesavers, so you don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Right. So if you're keeping track, Victor, that's sequencer, Python, editor utility widgets. We're big fans of those three systems pretty heavily.
Yes.
Which version of Unreal are you currently on?
424. Or is it 423 or 4.1? 4? Man,
I think I'm on the latest.
No, I don't know.
424.
424.3.
424.3. I just looked.
Yeah, it's the latest 424 version.
Oh yeah.
That's what I meant. Not 425. Oh, 425. 420. So yeah, the animators have at this point you can pretty much, I'm going to keep saying it, the animators have full control of what they are able to do in the scene in editor. The other thing too is with the levels separated, environment artists are going to go in, do their thing, animators are going to do their thing. On top of that, we can the animators can actually change the entire scene's position just by using this scene origin that is created specifically for this purpose, to have some sort of relative location that all of the characters are using to have position. And this means that they can move the entire scene around, and now this whole scene will play in this spot. They can even animate so that this scene origin, if they needed to do it at the end, they can animate it like this. Then at a certain point, they can move it over here, and it'll play the two different spots just like that. So this is something that we found really
All right, I think we are back now. Cool. Okay, sorry about that.
I thought I saw you disappear.
Disappear and waving frenetically to try to get you on. Audio interface crashed again. I promise, chat, before next Thursday, I am going to buy a new audio interface. I'm a little disappointed with this one. All right, let's get back to it. Sorry about that.
Sorry, cool. Is everything, are we moving along at a decent pace? Did you want to actually take the moment to pull out any questions, Victor?
We had a few. If you want to go ahead and answer them, I think chat would appreciate that.
Just because since we had that good break, maybe now we can
for sure. Yeah, and some of them are relevant. One of you just were curious if the eyes were a shader, because it seems like they blink automatically.
They do.
Oh. Yeah, the eyes are actually Paper 2D, but they're switching which sprite it is based on logic in their animation blueprint.
And are they tied into the editor tick right now? So that's why they're blinking, not in play mode.
It's weird because they just constantly blink while the animator's going and do stuff. You can also turn off the automatic blink and make them blink manually too. But yeah, they aren't blinking via a shader.
Except for Viper, who is inverted, right? Like Viper's always closed, but sometimes opens his eyes.
Yeah, Viper, that's just on purpose.
He's got a weird setup.
Yeah.
Shoot me!
Yeah, he's got the Clint Eastwood action eyes.
Since you mentioned Paper 2D there, there was a question if Terrible Posture Games used a custom system for the 2D assets or a modded form of Paper 2D.
Ooh, we're gonna get into that.
Well, I mean, we just kind of made Paper 2D. Some aspects of it, there's a little bit of bugginess, but we we kind of made it a little bit nicer, but not too much. But yes, all of the assets for the characters are paper 2D. They are sprites using flipbooks.
Which we'll dive into in a little bit heavier of a topic in a minute, actually.
We're just about getting there, yeah.
Yeah, just about. Yeah. Anything else you want to ask, or you want us to go right into that stuff?
Those are good for now. I have a few more later, but they're more general, so we can leave them for the end.
Okay, great. Then we actually, I think we've probably talked quite a bit about lip sync already. Do you all just want to kind of move right into the custom tools, since we're kind of looking at about 50 minutes in right now?
I don't know, I'd say let's show off the tool at least. I mean, it's pretty quick. It's a few minutes.
Yeah. All right,
because people were asking about our custom tools and everything earlier too.
Yeah, we've got a lot of custom tools.
Yeah, so this lip sync tool, we basically decided early on that we wanted to do our lip syncing manually. We didn't want to have an automated process. We really wanted it to feel organic and be able to do really big, exaggerated results. And felt like, in order to do that, you really needed to get an animator involved who could go through and do this. So because of that, we needed to make sure that the manual process was really fast and easy to use. And originally, and I think it took about 10 minutes per line for somebody to go through. And there's like a drop down for the mouth type that they have to go key. And it's just a list of probably, 10, 15, just the names. So like, you can see there these different phoneme names, and you didn't have any visual. It was just, just text, and so you kind of had to really know like what phoneme correlated with what sound. So it's a lot of just being really used to that list, and just a lot of having to go back and forth with in the sequencer, and it just was a little clunky in that process, especially where we wanted it to just be really fast. So in this, here's another editor utility widget that I whipped up, and this is basically it has nice big visualizations for all the phonemes you can choose. It actually has, we do a little bit of a hack. So editor utility widgets, at least right now, or as of 4.24, don't support custom input. So there's no hotkeys for those specific, the specific tool. It's really difficult to get input to it. So actually what we use at the top, you can see there's a text area where you just click into that to get focus. And then we just parse the keyboard input in a really kind of old school way for handling that. So it works out pretty well for the animators. So now essentially what you do, you can hear as Zuko scrolls through that, he's using hotkeys, and it's almost like playing a video game when you go through and lip sync now. You put your hands on WASD and you get your mouse hovered over the different phonemes, and you're scrolling through, and the different there's a bunch of different hotkeys. Go forward by 1 frame, 5 frame, next key, previous key. You can see like the buttons. If you forget, you can hover over those to see the tooltips. We can't see the tooltips actually right now because of the way Zuko's streaming.
Yeah, I'm trying to familiarize myself again.
Yeah, but there's a few. There's preview the sound on that exact frame, so you can really see like if as Kevin said, like exactly. So you don't have to sit there and scrub back and forth using the timeline. I think this is quite successful. As you can see, he plays through it, highlights the active phoneme. I think it took Liam's in the chat. He could comment how fast it takes to do an individual line on average now.
Yeah, it took 8 to 12 minutes before per line, and you're looking at 350 lines to 400 to 500 lines per episode. How long does it take now? Maybe he'll respond. Maybe he's not listening anymore.
Well, it was I think it took about a week or so.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had a few less animators, and it was it did take about a week or so to fully lip sync the episode, which is it was way too long. So now we have like a lip sync party where all the animators come in, and in just one day they bust out all the lip syncing for the episode in one day, and it's really fast. And as far as I've heard, all their feedback, this process is working pretty well. Certainly keep an eye out for any improvements we can do, but I really like it. So anyway, we can move on from
well,
that.
Actually, real quickly, we should drop in why we didn't go with an auto lip syncing route. There are auto lip syncing tools that you could use, and you get results that are varying in quality, but we didn't go that
Well, that's
way.
kinda-
Why?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I mentioned that earlier, right? We just wanted the organic, be able to have nice exaggerated things, especially because we really need things to be funny, and to get that
I think
comedy. A lot of
Pylon said it
times
was a
depends. It depends on the mouth lining up with the different facial animations and everything. And so to have that disconnect of like the animators having full control over the face and the eye expressions, everything like that, and then just the mouth is completely automated, it would be a big disconnect. And that'd be
Probably
really
spend
hard
more
to-
time cleaning it up than you
Yeah.
would doing it this way.
Definitely. So that's really why we went with that. And so just trying to make this process, as easy as possible. But so I think that's about it.
Yeah, I'll
on
quickly
the lip sync
show
tool.
just so that people can see that, like how the actual graph looks for that that tool. So the
for the
hotkeys,
input.
just because I think it is a hack, but it is something that I think is very important for people who are interested in tool making to know, because having hotkey power is really powerful.
Well, it's nice, as
Yeah.
like you said, if you don't want to have to come in and do code, and this lets you still live in the world of editor utility widgets. I think if you wanted to make a slate or a window that
It would
would
take
be able to
quite
take
a bit
hotkeys,
more time,
you have to
yeah.
make a full slate window, which is a lot of C++, to be able to
Yeah.
get to that point. So people who are really Blueprint only developers, correct me if I'm wrong, Victor, if I speak wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is a good way if they want to make tools where they can get input and hotkeys like that. So
Especially since it doesn't require any code, you can just blueprint it all.
yeah, it's really nice, and I will say, I'll shout out. I actually really like Blueprint. I think that you guys have taken that in a really good direction. So I'm curious.
That's a
I'm
programmer
curious where that
saying
looks
Yeah.
in like. No, it is.
Artist,
Flip that.
like myself,
No,
like,
A programmer from Unity side of things, no less.
No, it's I don't know. I love C++ and all that too, but I think especially in this game, it's really important for Blueprint. We've got a lot of
Yeah.
people, the tech artists, everything. People can hop in and do stuff. And
Yeah, actually, to get super high level here, a game like 3 out of 10, a game which is designed to be made episodically with tons of different mini games, where every single mini game is a different kind of game. It's actually like a ton of different kinds of actual games. This just would not be possible without Blueprint. Blueprint puts power into the hands of a lot more people, which allow the removal of bottlenecks about who's creating the logic. And I mean, yes, you do have to kind of come up with standards, and you do have to think about how you're going to put a framework around these things. But there's always this argument about non-programmers shouldn't be programming. Learning how to work around constraints is not as people are smarter than I think programmers would give them credit for, and they can adapt to constraints. That's my soapbox. I like.
yeah, I mean, at least my experience, everybody here has been doing a pretty good job, and we have some issues, but train them up a good amount, and it's not like a lot of the blueprints that people are making are super super crazy technical or anything. So it's I think it's good. I think it feels a good niche.
I think I'm probably the most dangerous blueprinter on the team, because I come in and out only every few months, and the standards you all have been rolling with have changed.
You are pretty dangerous. We have to keep an eye on you.
Yeah.
So this hockey thing, I'm gonna reel this back into to what we were talking about here. The editable. It's an editable text box. That's all it is, with using the event on it to look for on text change. When that text changes, there's the event over here. I believe it's this one, on text change event. And all Nolan was doing is just straight up saying when that text changes, it has an input text variable, and then you use that on, I believe, on tick probably somewhere. You'd use that basically as your way to.
Yeah, it's on tick. It's just detecting what your keyboard input is and just parsing it out.
Process
Do you
input
flush
right
it
here.
after that so that it becomes zeroed again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it basically just continually wipes out the text area. So you never see what you type. It just kind of take that stuff. I think that's old school technique. Maybe I used in like some of my first programs written in like command prompt to make little games in the command prompt and stuff. I think that's the last time I used that.
Yeah, it's just a fun little hack that you can use, and it's totally available and really easy to do in editor utility widgets. So that's why I think it's really important to show that off, because
I think we should also stress, though, that's editor utility widgets, which means this is essentially a tool for your dev team. It's not like this is how we're releasing the input for the game.
No, yeah.
This is tool stock for us internally to be able to do
That's
our
going
job
to be a
faster.
weird question later. So is all the in-game? No. So yeah, I think now we can move on to the actual rig.
Yeah,
Is
let's
that what
talk about
we're
this
moving
rig here. We got some cool stuff, so let's show that
Cool.
off.
Yeah. So the as you've seen, everything is all in editor. It's all real time and animatable and everything. And the way that we kind of started with this is on any blueprint, you can designate already. You can designate any property value to have a widget. And to do this, it's literally just a checkbox on the property. So if I go into like, you can see all the blueprint stuff. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Just making sure. So on
high level here, you're talking about the manipulators, which are the foundation of this rig.
Yeah, I'm getting to it. The so right here, the this like head FK transform is using a show 3D widget checkbox. With that on, Unreal already has the support to be able to click this head FK, and you can even see it says head FK, and move it around and do whatever it needs to do. I took that idea and was like, well, I kind of want more power than just that. I want to be able to take this and make it visually what I wanted to make it, almost like a rig in Maya. Like if you've ever seen a rig for Maya that is set up like from a technical animator, it has all the visual elements to make an animator's life less cringe. So then with that power, I settled on this, what I call the manipulator tools. So the manipulator tools is a system in which allows you to add components onto any blueprint. So if I select Kevin here, these are just components that are on Kevin. Oh, I got rid of my viewport. Hold on. I literally just hit the X on something I wanted to keep. Get into there. Do it. Cool. So we have our actual rig, and these manipulators are something that can be added to any blueprint and controlled as to whether it's a transform, vector, bool, or an enum that it is manipulating. And these, just like the show 3D widget checkbox, it is the exact same type of like linkage. You tell it which property to look at, and then from there, the actual rig sends the data to the character after I'm moving the manipulator. So all that stuff is really cool to have to make something as robust as this and customizable inside of the engine. And I can kind of give you a little preview of what all of these manipulators look like. Inside of here, all these green icons you can see are the manipulator components. And each one of these is just saying which property should I link to, what type of property it is, and then it has all of the visual elements that allows it to display. This allows us, and they're literally just added components that changes, and this allows us a lot of versatility when it came to making the rig. And you can see, I can move around, and actually, as an animator, I can move and get his arm into place. I can screw up his elbow, and now inside of the sequencer, it's auto keying as well while I'm doing all this. So if I actually play, you can see he goes back and he'll pop into that spot. Yeah, all of this
Can
stuff.
you do that a little bit more? Just like play around with some of the controls there, because you got a ton of different controls on that thing.
I do. So there's, we have the hands. We can stretch them to a certain length. We have the actual torso control, which can be also scaled in fun ways.
His neck.
We have to be careful about the neck, because the neck is a very weird, has to be weird type of piece, and he can kind of do his thing now. I'm not an animator, so my poses are not going to look nearly as good.
I think it looks great. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, we might. So the other thing too is that all of these characters, as you've kind of seen, they have a they have 4 different views. So if I link all the views, you can see. I mean, maybe I should put Kevin back before I show this off. But
What are you talking about? It's great.
We'll get him to
Big head mode.
Good
get
luck.
him to kind of something that was.
We're gonna do a
what he
big head
was
episode.
before. Here, I'll go to a different frame. So
Oh,
you
there
can
you
see that we can actually control the actual views on the character, and if I link the head, he'll actually turn like almost as if he's 3D. And all this stuff is using Paper 2D's flipbooks, which hindsight, if you ever have the thought process of, hey, I should use flipbooks to quickly change between different sprites, and you're not actually using them for flipbooks, don't. You'll run into a lot of issues. But we are using flipbooks to do it because that's what we started with, and it's really hard to go back at this point. We would just, and now instead I would probably just have a sprite, and I would just switch between the sprites
Just state
manually
solid
instead
sprite
of
states.
putting it all in a flipbook like this and then telling which frame to play.
Well, there are benefits that come along with it too, like especially when it came to the like culling that you do around the edges of the sprite. From
Yeah,
Blender 2D, right?
that's the benefits of sprites. I'm just saying, like flipbooks themselves, because flipbooks operate on tick. That's the issue that we ran into, is that these characters have 26 pieces on them and they're all running on tick. So we had to go in and actually optimize the flipbooks custom in code, actually tell them to kind of shut up when we wanted them to shut up. So you can see that, like the mouth here, this is actually, we can go to Kevin's pieces. All the flipbooks are set up in here as the different views. So if I go to like Kevin's head, we have the way we kind of do our views. We have a front side, back side, and back view, and all of those just play depending on whatever the animator decides to do. And from here, these are all individual sprites that are based off of an atlas for each of the views. So we have like a front atlas and corresponding atlases for each of the different views. From here, we have the full power of Paper 2D to be able to put in custom render geometry, the collision, and the actual source region stuff, and the pivot points. And really the only thing that we did custom in Paper 2D is just to kind of piggyback off of the earlier question, was we by we I mean Nolan went in and actually fixed the pivot points so that the actual, when you modify the pivot in custom pivot, it doesn't, or it actually updates while you're doing that, instead of waiting for you to stop the movement. That was one of the big changes that saved us a lot of time for Paper 2D when setting up all these pieces. Because before, if you would basically do this and then you'd do this and then you'd have to wait and then do this, wait, do this, wait. So
overall, there's not really too many modifications you did to it, right, in the engine? I don't think.
No, I
like
think the
2 or
only other
3.
thing we did was when you're going into edit a source region, the camera would reset sometimes, and that's just kind of a visual bug.
Yeah, like quality of life stuff.
Yeah, so we didn't really do any. Sorry, what, Joe?
I was gonna say, can you pop open one of the explorers so people can actually see as you're talking here? You walk around and show the views.
Yeah, I can get there. We can go to
pylons.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, there were a few mention of control rig, but the entire animation system is actually based on your custom component system, right?
Correct. And we actually looked, when we first started 3 out of 10, it was around a year and a half, 2 years ago. So control rig was basically in baby steps or baby format at that point. And we opened it up, we took a look, and for our needs at that point, we decided to move forward with the components over the control rig. Just at that moment, we are evaluating it constantly, and we would love to see it kind of, I think it's almost in a finished state at this point. I had something way more official to say about that, and I totally didn't.
Control rig is just so you all don't know, just in case you all don't know, control rig is a kind of a cool way to also animate within the engine like this. It's focused a little bit more on skeletal meshes and is very cool. So, and like Zuko said, we come back and take a look at it every couple of months or every version or two, and we're like, okay, how's it evolved? And when we set out to do this, control rig wasn't really an option. And each time we look at it, we're like, okay, it's a little closer to being an option. But now we've gone down this road.
It's probably the closest it's ever, like, I've been seriously considering it more lately because of all of the improvements.
Yeah, but that would be like a, now that we have
be
this
a pretty
bespoke
big
solution,
change
that'd
for
be
us.
something we'd have to look at, being like, okay, so down the road,
Yeah.
Zuko rig 3.0. That's what we would lean on that.
That's what everybody calls the rig, Zuko rig. To kind of piggyback off of like the views stuff and the paper 2D system with changing views, not only is it possible for the animators to just change views on a character during their animations, we can do it in the game too. So this is kind of an example of an explore phase where you can walk around as a character, and we're doing this based off of one animation at the moment, where we have the animators. That's what the animation kind of looks like by default, just that left or right idle animation. And then when I hit the different like movement directions, I change that on the fly, which is kind of a good and bad thing. We get, you can see like Pylon's legs, they look a little weird in the back views, but it's one of those things where we had to decide like time over making 4 different animations for each views versus having the ability to just change the views on the fly, because there's a lot of power in that. That I think to us was the decision that we made for that.
Man, you got to pick up some attachments.
Yeah.
Right.
You bait
that armor.
Yeah. So you can see here, like I can pick things up. We can put on like the helmet. I can dance around. Typical battle royale stuff, really.
Yeah, but this is what I was saying earlier, where this stuff will save throughout the entire rest of the episode.
Yeah, so I can show that actually. So if I skip past the explore phase, this is how I tested it. Is now in the next scene afterwards, you can see he's got his stuff. And then this is actually set up right now to refresh. So now it just refreshed. And
this was the intro to that explore phase, so that's why he didn't have his stuff yet.
Yep.
In that one.
And then I can pick up more stuff, and I can test again. Hey, he's got a grenade this time. So that type of stuff is really cool to us to be able to transfer that throughout the entire rest of the episode. I think
we got a fun question here. How similar to your in real life studio is the game studio? We actually
pretty much 1-to-1.
1-to-1. Yes, our animator did explode spontaneously. That's how the show starts.
Animators are expensive because of that.
We actually don't have a physical location. We've been a remote studio since day one, and while a bunch of us have worked in studio environments, so we're pulling from our personal experiences. Terrible Posture Games itself, our studio meeting rooms and offices are all on a Discord server, and so we are spending a lot of time chatting. But we're also we don't really get the benefit of this office culture in our particular studio, so that's a huge difference. On the plus side, though, we can be spread out all over the place, and it's totally not a barrier. So, like Nolan there is in Nevada, and Zuko's in Alabama, and I'm in Boston, and right there we're hitting 3 points of this country. We've got people all over the place. So,
yeah.
So to get us back
I
on
can
track,
move on.
Yeah. Let's progress onward.
Yeah, cool. So showing off the different manipulators and stuff on the rig, that's awesome. We are really happy with how that came out. It works well for the animators, and we're moving forward with that full speed. But kind of a really awesome side effect to the manipulator tools was the ability to use them on any blueprint. And this is kind of where, the balance of control rig versus, other ways to do things comes into play, because not only can we have it on a rig, we can have it on the actual scene origin. And that's how you saw earlier, I was clicking like these visual manipulators to move things, because the scene origin is kind of like foolproof almost, where you have the ability to lock the transform only so that it only moves when I'm using the actual manipulator. And that's some way, like a way for basically animation team doesn't like accidentally move things when they're trying to do stuff. And I have other stupid things where you can kind of move like the flag to a different area to stop from overlap. And then on top of that, It's that type of thing. So I guess another example of tools that can use manipulators are the camera switchers too. So in our game, I can kind of show it first so you can see what I'm talking about. We'll do a little dance, and then I'll go ahead and go over to the supply closet. And here is kind of a what I call the camera switcher system. So you can switch to a different camera really quickly as if you're entering a different move, and it switches back. So that's how that works. But the main functionality behind that is set up with a camera switcher actor. And this camera switcher controls different points where we have the interactions, where we have the actual character spawning. And one of the really big things that we have to do when we spawn the characters in order to get the views to kind of like look like the characters in a certain direction is we have to make sure when we spawn the view, you can see right here, this bottom part, this is where the actual, where Pylon is going to spawn when he comes back. And this is also a manipulator plugin manipulator. That's terrible. Manipulator plugin. It's rotated in a certain way. So this is his front facing direction. So that way, when the camera is looking at it, he actually looks like he's facing left. And we have to kind of set these up in a very specific way in order to make sure, because the views are kind of, you have to get within like a certain 45-degree threshold in order for the right view to show up. But the whole point of this is that not only is it just on things like fancy rigs and stuff, it's also for just really simple tools. I can set up a very quick actor that is just looking at transforms on it. So right here, I just have 4 transforms that I'm looking at, and these transforms can be adjusted just with the manipulators, and I can see them visually where they're going to be. So that is something that is a nice little side effect of the manipulator tools, and we use them all over the place for so many different things. Another really cool one that we didn't plan on showing, but I remembered last night and I want to show is a rig of Sally in the fridge.
Ooh, yeah, our office tentacle.
Yeah, I just have to remember where we're going here. Scene.
That's in that one right there.
Yeah.
I guess we should also, from a high level, just kind of say these manipulators are essentially ways to visualize things very similar to how animation already visualizes the stuff when they're looking at rigs. That route has come about because it is very easy for the animators to use. We're like, let's deploy that to a lot of other aspects in the engine.
Yeah. And I touched on it a little bit. I think I might have. I don't remember. So Sally is our wonderful fridge tentacle. And in the episode, Pylon has a moment where he gets a drink from Sally from the fridge. So you can see in the editor, Sally is a spline-based actor that has animatable spline points. So in Sequencer, you can't animate spline points. Unfortunately, that was one of the things that I kind of was hoping was built in, so I didn't have to do it. But thankfully, the manipulator components kind of use this I designate. I have 6 points, or wait, hold on. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sweet. That I can manipulate on Sally, and they're literally using the same manipulator tools to do that. And all it is I just click on the point, and I can change the scale of that, and you can see that now I have like Sally in a weirder position already. And then along with all the different other really nice things from Sequencer, since Sequencer is able to change simple things like floats, we can change like how crazy tentacly she is. So that's just another added bonus with all these components. So you can kind of see, that one simple component can be used in so many different ways. Yeah, I think at this point we can move to the setup of a character, because I want to show off the actual like joint view system, which is also using manipulators.
Somebody mentioned they wanted to see your AnimVP stuff too. I don't know.
Okay.
Touch on that at that point.
Yeah. So, the the nice thing is all of this manipulator stuff I am almost done and ready. I just need to make documentation. We are going to be releasing the manipulator component as an open source plugin. So that's something that I'm pretty excited about.
That particularly, we should mention that was because that was something that you had built kind of off on your own.
Yes.
And brought to Terrible Posture, the idea of the component system.
It was one of those things. I've made so many tools in Unreal at this point, and I wanted more power, and that's how the manipulator tools were born. And then Control Rig showed up, and it was like, here's some more power. And I was like, oh, are we gonna be friends, or maybe I don't have to have power?
Make sure you send that link to me as soon as it's live so that I can update the forum announcement thread and the YouTube description with a link to the plugin.
Awesome. Thank you. That'd be great. Yeah, the only reason it is technically, I could send you the link right now and people could get it. It's just, there's no documentation. So I don't know if people I don't think it's worth it if people are just going to be flying blind, in it, but I'm going to make a promise of having the documentation in by the end of the weekend.
All right. You heard it here.
So that's my promise.
Oh boy.
I'm finally going to do it.
Nice.
Yeah. So, as far as the animation blueprints behind this, Sally's probably a good example of how things go, how the actual like connections of things go. First off, since we are doing everything in the editor, almost anything that you're seeing that is happening live like this is using editor tick. We capitalize on that big time. And you can activate editor tick already, and I believe you can already use it on editor utility widget actors, but the way that we did it was a little bit more, it's like a slight code tweak, and I have some links that I can post to you as well, Victor, for that. There's the whole like page that I wrote up on how to do editor tick in a way that doesn't, because if you do it in a certain way, you can kind of get ticking to happen in weird sections. Let me just get some water.
Right. So let's move on to the what was the next thing we want to look at? The views themselves, or you had said
I was going to jump into the anim blueprint stuff because there was
right.
a question about that, I believe, but we don't have to. So since we are using the editor tick, you can see everything's running everything's hot right now with with Sally. So all of this information is being stored onto Sally, and then this is a bit more complicated than
you should zoom in.
I don't want to, because it's a bit more complicated of a setup, because it's a lot of this is very custom with how I'm sending data. You can go ahead and set up like your own animation blueprints to have your transforms hook into it really easily. But with the rig system, I chose to go with a generic route, so that way I can send and receive data in a more generic sense. So you can kind of see I have like the rig animation data comes in, and it's just a map, and the map is full of generic transform vector, bool, and int, I believe is the 4 different types you can kind of pump through it. I don't know if it's a good way to do it, so that's why I'm not sure if it's good to tell people to do it this way.
Well, actually,
it works for us.
What was that?
I just figured so you could show, example.
Yeah.
So you can see what you're talking about.
So, and this actually goes back to the spirit of the project. With every time we find ways to optimize like this, we'll identify them, and then potentially in future episodes we can hit them. But we make sure to like cordon off episodes that are earlier, where at certain points, so that we don't impact things that have been released already. So like it's essentially a living project. But I was going to say though that that question might have been geared more towards AnimBP and not the.
That's where I'm getting. I'm getting there.
All right.
We're gonna make it. I promise. We'll get to AnimBP in probably like 2 minutes. So if you have the actual, like, if you have your manipulators and stuff and you're sending data, or you have like a transform on an object, the NMBPs can just read directly from that. So for us, all of our animation blueprints are reading all of this data. We have the generic data system, it's sending data through, and then our animation blueprints are pretty straightforward. They just grab whatever pieces they need to grab. The really annoying part, which I can't help but complain about, I'm trying to get to the actual thing, and I should just go straight to it. That's where I'm going. Resources. Here we go.
Folder
Setup.
structure hierarchy now.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of time went into
A lot of stuff going
us, kind of plotting out how to get hierarchy that was effective for scaling per episodes.
Okay,
and even then,
so
we're still learning.
There's 3 different characters that we have. We have the characters like this that are made up of all the different body parts. Then we have characters that are everything's together, and we have a simplified version as well. And all this was just in an interest of different optimization. So the one that has all the different pieces is actually 4 animation blueprints. So we have the head, which is probably the most complex of it. And really the animation blueprints have we have a bit of a code class that's doing some sort of like stuff for us when it comes to like how things attach and all that. That is a whole breadth of complexity, but the main takeaway from this is that we have, when our animation data is modified, because that whole like generic animation data system, what we're doing in the actual anim instance is we're checking the data when it comes in, and we say when it's modified, we want to do something. And this is important for us because we have a very stepped animation system, or animation style, which means we can capitalize on the frames that nothing is happening. So when Viper is saying shoot me up close, he's not actually moving his head in that moment, and we can say let's not actually calculate anything, and it saves us a lot of performance. So when the animation data is modified, we go through and we grab the actual head, and then we split it off and we say, okay, get the head FK. And this is the part that I hate so much, is I have to split it into 3 different variables, and for each of the different types of transform data. And the reason why is because in AnimBlue, for when you're actually using blueprints to do animation blueprint, it's very important to have this little light bulb or lightning icon.
Bulb?
Yeah, and this is
fast path, right?
Yep. In the documentation, it's called the fast path animation. And the idea is that it doesn't use the blueprints from a high level point of view. The idea is it doesn't use the slow blueprint method to do things. And this only works if you use individual variables. So that's really all the NMBPs are doing, though, is they're grabbing this data and sending it off to our actual animgraph. So you can see the head's very simple. And this is where I was going to jump into the joint view stuff, because all of this stuff is using like a basic setup of positions. So if I go and grab Kevin's head, here we have Kevin's head by itself, and you can see that he has like eyes and all that stuff in certain positions, but he's using a very generic version of a head in our game. So every character is using the same like head animation blueprint. So what we do from there is I have a system called the joint view transform system. So we are able to set the joint positions, default positions, based on which view he's in. So in here, if I go into the joint views themselves, you can see I'm also using the manipulators for this, where I can change his positions of his default eyes for this one view. So now he's got eyes on his cheeks. And then when I change it to the front side view, I can do the same thing. I can move it. And then you can see kind of like the power behind that. So now I don't have to make individual anim blue for every single character. So they're all using the same like data at the end of the day. And now if I check that in, it would be populated to all of the episodes that use Kevin's head.
Yeah, let's not do that. Okay, so I think that we're moving a little bit slow through things right now. We've got to kind of, I think, pick up the pace in terms of what we're showing. What else is actually on our list of things that we wanted to show off?
Are you sure we're moving slow? Because I think we're pretty much almost at the end of our list.
Are we? Are we going to talk about the spawnable stuff at all?
Maybe.
Well, I guess we don't need to. Yeah, that's fine.
Did you mention how the yeah, I think he did mention how the rigs are spawned.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit, I guess, about just some of the other goodies that we have. Those are more visual and more exciting, I think, to like kind of show off, because I think that people would appreciate seeing a little bit of the pose library, maybe, and the animation helper tool. So let's kind of dive over to that.
Cool.
Yeah, we're still doing pretty good on time.
Okay, cool.
Maybe an explore with like Midge's run or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I just looked at the clock and I saw that we're at about 90 minutes since the stream started. So
hold on, I can do this. There we go. I did it. I opened a level.
Whew. Back here again.
All right.
It's fine. Either one.
Yeah, we don't want too many spoilers.
Well.
Questions asked. What is up with the duck that says quack? Absolutely nothing. We're definitely not going to hit that button on stream.
I don't know what it does right now, but I'm totally going to do that right now.
I don't know.
Unless you were being sarcastic, right?
Well, it doesn't say anything bad, but I think
super...
it is. Yeah, I think it is literally. It used to say quack, and then people would hit it impulsively, and then I think I stealth changed it out to say.
It's loud, and for a long time.
Yeah,
luckily we're not down mode.
This one's not that long. Trust me, I just hit it.
Sure.
It's
Okay.
not bad.
Oh, it's okay. All right.
It's
Either
me
way.
and Liam laughing.
Oh, okay. Occasionally we change it to a dumb sound effect, and that's literally all it is. But it used to be I read out the entire Wikipedia article on what a mallard duck was, or not the entire, but like the first 2 paragraphs. And so they'd hit that button and it'd just be playing noise for 3 minutes. So that's why I was like,
Sorry,
don't hit it.
that's my fault. We can move on.
The button actually exists because that was a training exercise for me when I started a Terrible Posture I had never worked on Unreal before. So it was just to like familiarize myself with there and actually go in and edit the engine, do some stuff. So
right, that's right. I was like, hey, we need you to be ramping up on tools as fast as possible. Here's something that gives us a goal. Here's something that gives us a thing that will be forever a thing we use to prank each other in the engine.
Yeah.
But the major goal of it was at first just to kind of get you adjusted to messing with the engine and getting tools for us.
Yes.
Suko, I can't. Oh, there you go. No, your stream's working again. I think your stream's down in the.
Yeah, it's down for me here. Do you want to restart it again, Chris?
Yes.
Suko. Apologize.
Nice.
There you go.
Boom. All right.
Cool.
We are here. We got. Let's see if Ben is a good candidate for this.
Sure.
All right. Let me get the characters. Cool. So we got Ben. I'm gonna hide. H. Boom.
Hide the tree.
Yes. Cool. So is this where you want to talk about this stuff, Nolan?
Sure. Yeah. So this is the animation helper tool. Basically, just something to assist out our animators if the name wasn't obvious enough. Main things that this helps with is the reuse of existing animations. So it functions as a pose library. So as you can see, Zuko's clicking through different folders. And these are just, referencing other sequences that exist. It's really easy for the animators to go in and add new poses, duplicate from other ones and tweak them. And that way, if they make a walk cycle or a few different variations, they don't, obviously don't want to keep doing the same exact walk cycle over and over again. So, and then over time, as they add to the pose library, it's just, a more robust library for them to pull from for inspiration for different animations and stuff. And one thing this actually does is something we needed to solve was multi-track copy and paste in Sequencer, which isn't actually supported right now. Like Zuko, if you pause and just like go to highlight multiple tracks and multiple sequences, drag from all the keys. Sorry.
Yeah. If you try to do this.
And then right click, so you can't copy and paste. It's just not something that's supported right now. So something that's supported in here is basically a custom copy paste. That allows people to or animators to go in and copy paste custom sections and then go through and tweak things differently. And using that, that's kind of built into how these are inserted. So Zuko, if you can go to his walk and just extend his walk with a different, some other animation, maybe a different type of walk or something like that. So we can see the blend tool too. Cool. Yeah. So that's good. So then basically you can see he just, he inserted it and he can continue to insert more, more animations. And this is actually, you can actually take these animations and insert them onto different characters too. So you could take Ben's walk and insert it on a midge, assuming they have, basically just correlates any of the overlapping body parts. So, not everything might be carried over, but anything that they have the same body parts of.
And the reason that you all are doing this as keys rather than as like a placed in subsequence with the track is that then it is something that is allowed to be custom adjusted to the scene, because every one of these scenes needs to be fine tuned and placed.
Yeah, exactly right. We're really heavily animation based, and we don't want the same animation used over and over and over again. So the animators need a lot of control of okay, I want to reference this animation, but I want to change it a little bit. I want to tweak it and make it feel nice, specific to this scene. So. Did you add some blend keys in there, Zuko? Did you show that?
Yeah.
You did. Yes. If you saw that, there's a little blend tool at the bottom of this. Basically, you can drag 0% to 100% of the previous set of keys, next set of keys, basically on everything before and after that timeline of what you have selected, and it goes and automatically blends between the animations, which is I think pretty nice.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
I'm pretty sure the animators use that quite a bit. So.
I believe it's based off a tool that's free called Tweener or Tweak. It's like the tween tool for Maya.
Now, that's the inspiration for it.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So I think we've done a pretty good job of kind of showing all the different components that go in. There's quite a bit, as you can see, that goes into animation. There's quite a bit that go into these cutscenes. We could really quickly also mention up some of the game stuff, because even though this stuff is heavily used in cutscenes and heavily used in the explore phases, for the games, everything is way more custom. And we're not going to really dive too much into that, but we should probably talk about the game system at least a little bit for 5 minutes real quick.
Oh yeah. So for the idea for this was to be able to make mini games in any genre that we could think of, basically complete control.
Zuko, could you load up the Jeb fight?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Yeah,
thanks.
That's right. Oh,
I was blending Ben, Joe.
Oh, into air sitting. Nice, perfect.
In my own little world as an animator.
Yeah. So so here's a mini game that we have, a Jeb fight where you
let's actually play it and show them what it is. This is inspired by a classic NES game. You're not showing with sound right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think we get the gist.
Yeah. So the idea is I walk back and forth, and I can throw a pylon.
Also, spoilers for you, Victor. Sorry.
Figured as much. That was going to happen. It's my bad for not playing all the episodes yet.
So what we discovered early on is we needed all of the games to basically be based on a base class, so we can share some common functionality. All the games needed to be able to reset in the same way, needed to be able to be skipped, and played over and over again. And so we have a base class that basically provides that functionality, common stuff, just so that you would need to set up per game. Obviously, then don't need to set it up for each of the different mini games. So they start off, and then the idea is that you start off with this blank slate of okay, we're ready to go. We've got our our intro and everything, and hopefully the majority of what you have to do is just the pure game dev. You don't have to set up the same intro and exactly how do I reset and binding to the correct events and all that stuff again. So that's handled by our embedded game template, or the base for it. And then just again it's kind of a sandbox for ultimate control for the designers and who's making games. We didn't really, you don't want to restrict them. We didn't want to make it so you can't go to specific genres or anything like that. It's just kind of, you just do whatever you can to create a game however you want. And this is definitely of anything the most traditional sense of making a game that we've showed so far, is just go through and if you've got your idea, you go through and set it up however it needs to be done. We've got a few different reusable components, different timers and health bars and stuff like that, but it's really just whatever the designers make. They can choose how they want to use it between the different games, everything like that.
You just gave them a framework with which to build around so that it can exist within the ecosystem of the episode.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is treated like another scene. All the games are. You go into it and it's started and stopped the same way. It's picked up by our scene selection menu. The explore phases are actually like internally considered mini games too. So it's just helpful. Nice framework to start from, but not limiting in how the games are made. You can really do whatever you want, ranging from first person shooter style stuff to top-down RPG-esque thing, really whatever, anything you can think of.
Which, I mean, as if people play the episodes, they should see they're a little all over the place. There are, puzzle games, there's side scrollers, there's brawlers, there's first-person shooters, there's we try and shake it up with every single episode, and this framework is what keeps it stable and consistent, as quick as possible to actually build.
So I think that's it. There's not a ton of detail and specific tools that we've written for that yet. I definitely don't want to neglect our designers, and if they request it, we'll definitely get more stuff to them. But right now, it's pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah, cool. Then I think that's kind of a good overview of what it takes. Like we had that, the brain in the script, and then we had the generation, the automated generation, and then we showed you quite a bit about what went into the animation and what went into the rig itself, and what went into a lot of the different tools we use to assist us in making these episodes quickly. At the end of this, you end up with a 30-minute experience that the player can, one, that we can build quickly, and then two, that the players can enjoy every single week. I guess now we could probably take some questions. Does that all sound okay to you, Victor?
Sounds great to me. The first one that comes to mind was someone asked, where did the initial idea for 3 out of 10 come from?
That's a good question. And there's at least 2 meetings that I had early on. One with my wife. Well, not really a meeting. We just went out to lunch somewhere, and we were talking about what it would be like to have a silly game based off of a terrible game studio. And then talking with Zuko, when Zuko and I sat down after Mother Gunship, after we finished development on Mother Gunship, we were like, what do we want to build next? And we had a lot of different ideas, and we kind of eventually were settling on this idea of like, what about something that kind of uses all of these ideas? People ask us what genre 3 out of 10 is. I kind of tell them yes is my answer, because it's kind of every genre. Zuko, did you actually want to chime in on that? Because my memory is a little bit fuzzy. We're talking about 2 years ago.
I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is we've gotten asked this question many times, and really a lot of the inspiration for this game came from the fact that Mother Gunship was almost like a test ground for it. Like, Mother Gunship has many of the same voice actors, has many of the same like quirkiness and its weird story. so from there, we realized that people really resonated with that. And that was kind of like, okay, can we do this? Can we actually just make a game that people will enjoy and laugh? And at the same time, we can kind of have fun with the industry too.
That's right. Yeah, like with Mother Gunship, we were playing around with the story quite a bit. I wrote that story at like 3 a.m. at GDC 2018. It was exhausting, and as a result, it got very silly. And then I didn't think people would respond to it, but then people have, seemed to be really responded to that humor and to the silliness and to the absurdity pretty well. So, yeah, Zuko and I were like, let's explore that a little bit more. Maybe instead of a first-person shooter, we could work on something that is comedy and really leans hard into comedy, and we can kind of see what people think. Really leaning into the absurdity. So yeah, I think that's probably the best question for that. Quite the best answer for that.
Yeah, I was wondering as well because I've heard game mentioned, and then like sitcom or interactive sitcom. It's a little bit difficult to pin what it is. And I think that's
it is. We really were excited about making something that felt different, and the idea that something that was short, came out regular, came out in a way that surprised people. We really wanted to do something that people were like, "Wait, what is this? I've never played something quite like this," and that felt important to us to do something that felt fresh and different, something that people hadn't really seen before. Don't mind Zuko; he's just destroying Kevin.
I typed in Jeb and I totally forgot there's the naked Jeb scene.
Oh yeah, let's not open up that. That has, I think, a little pixelization censorship bar, so it would be fine.
It does,
but
yeah.
It's still disturbing to look at naked Jeb.
It's still disturbing to look at naked Jeb, regardless.
There was a question they were wondering if you made a prototype for surfing with sharks.
Do you mean like a pen and paper prototype? Do you mean like a prototype with pen?
Specifically was, did they make a prototype for surfing with sharks?
The game within a game is interesting. This is the world's worst game studio, and they are making a game, and that game is called Surfing with Sharks. And we have made a lot of different versions of that game. In particular, a developer named Liam, who's somewhere in the chat, was working on that, and that has been not his only thing, but that has been like his baby all throughout this project, and making sure that at every episode we treated it differently and absurd. And we didn't make a prototype that contained all of the features of the Surfing with Sharks because we wanted to kind of have it go in different directions with every single episode. And so every episode they add something a little bit different, and it's usually not a good idea. Usually it's something very silly or something that has no real right being in a game like Surfing with Sharks. So I guess the answer is like yes and no. Like the base mechanics we did, but then we're adding to it constantly with every episode.
It's a bit like a Warrior style mini game or mini games inside of a interactive sitcom. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's that. There's also a little retro console that you can play if you find it's hidden somewhere different. We like to do this thing where we know people are going to be revisiting the same location every episode when they go to the office. Usually they visit the office and they visit one other location during an episode, at least one. And we try and make sure that we hide different things in the office, a different story to read, different recipes to find, something different on the back of the cereal box. There's lots of just stuff to find and explore and like learn about the world. And that changes every episode. So it's almost like revisiting a friend every week and kind of seeing what's different with them, doing a little catch up on what's going on with the studio. And so the shark game and the progress with the shark game is one of those things.
Someone was curious earlier, and I think Liam answered it in chat, but I wanted to do it out on stream so that everyone watching on YouTube can hear it as well. They were curious how you did the animated TV, I think, in the office scene.
Oh, I think that was a flip book.
Jumro? It's the UMG. So the when Kevin intros the battle royale.
Oh, that
Zuko.
one.
Yeah. So it's just that UMG, and then I think they were curious as how like that was attached to the TV or something. But I'm pretty sure it's just
literally
UMG just straight up attached to it, right? It's a 3D.
Yeah, it's a 3D widget. 3D widgets are pretty awesome. They're pretty versatile. You can capture input with them too, but I don't know if it's been not marked as experimental.
Oh, the input portion.
I can't remember. It was for a long time. I think it's not experimental anymore, but for a long time it was flagged as an experimental thing. But it is a component within Blueprint that you can add and then point it to a UMG.
So yeah, right here I'm showing that the briefing panel is that component, and then underneath there it just points to the UI class. And then in here is where all the different animations are put in, like the exterior panning shot, and then all the different, I believe all the different like fun animated parts of that are individual UMGs themselves that animate all the little blue bits.
And that actually, not having that be video keeps the footprint of the episode down quite a bit. What were we saying earlier ago? We were like, if you were to make a 4K version of the trailer, or if we were to
It's bigger.
That is bigger than the episode itself. The entire episode would be smaller than
like a
than
4K,
video.
high compressed video of
Yeah.
the trailer.
Just because we've kind of made an effort to kind of keep these things at a fairly lightweight. So yeah.
Yeah, it was quick to download, but I also have fiber, so I don't know. That's
Any other questions?
Yeah. So Sally seems like a really cool mechanic. How did you handle the sprites for that effect?
For Sally?
Yes.
Let's go back to that scene.
We had to build Sally like 2 times because
we did.
Because I drew her wrong.
'Cause I
She was
got
originally
so
just going to be a
much
card
flack
that
from-
went. Okay,
I
so
got
that was a
attacked
learning
by our
process.
animators from the first rig.
Well, okay, to be fair though, the first rig was done on top of a drawing that was supposed to be just a slide in and out and not really animated.
Yeah.
And then it was like, let's animate this thing. So you had to like
Yeah.
straighten out this curved tentacle, make it flat, and then counter animate it back into a curve again. That was weird.
Yeah. But now all Sally is a bunch of spline meshes. So I have I believe I have the main mesh broken up into segments. And this was kind of like flying at the skin of my teeth. I'm trying to like do things really, really fast, and I don't have time to like try and iterate over and over at this point. So the easiest thing for me at that moment was to split Sally into I believe 10, 11 different meshes. So you can see here's like a segment, and then these are all individual spline meshes that are told to follow splines in the blueprint. So if you look up any type of like spline tutorials, you can get the gist of how to create splines, but it's literally just the actual spline meshes are created in the construction script, I believe. So here's the clear, and then I store them as a variable for spline meshes, and then I update them on the fly. So you can see if I don't have spline meshes right here, I say if it's not valid, I add the meshes in and store them into the variable. Then from there, I just do a for loop over them and change how their tangents and their start positions work. I guess
And
is the
she does not have multiple views. It is just kind of one view.
correct. Yeah,
And,
Sally is not multiple views.
A very
Somebody
custom kind of purpose.
somebody made a really good Sally in the chat.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, I was really impressed.
That is very cool. Cool. Were there other questions too?
Yeah, I got 2 more.
Okay.
So in this scene, I think it was with Ben, someone was curious if the purple peg on the floor is a custom placeholder for the character that you made or something that comes from engine.
I think that was the scene
Purple
origin.
Peg
that
on
we're
the
looking at.
floor.
That was been in the explore phase too.
Yeah. Like the
Oh, it
actual
would be
asset
2.
itself.
Yeah, I
That
think
was
so. They were
definitely-
just curious where the asset came from.
I think that was the scene origin, but we'll see. It
Yeah,
was
that-
the
that
This thing.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's just 2 primitives from the engine. It's just cylinders.
Nice.
What was that for? That is that the designation of where the character will spawn?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the origin, the relative location.
Are those editor only?
Yes. So when I hit G, you can see they're hidden, and they're also editor only components, so that way they should go away in the game as well.
Right. Yeah, they don't get compiled out when you package.
Even if they were compiled, they probably wouldn't be too bad though.
In terms of adding in cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2
Yeah,
non-rendered
if
meshes.
they're if they're
Yeah.
hidden, yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
big deal.
It's nice to always set it up like that and know that like, oh wait, this is actually not supposed to be in the game. Just
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead and mark it as editor only, and then you know that it won't be there. Won't
It's a
cause any
good
problems.
practice.
Yeah. Say if you happen to leave collision on one of them, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that can happen. So last question was, did you guys make any pull requests to engine code from some of the improvements that you made?
No.
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 We did kind of a roundabout solution, so I probably should with some, because we do have quite a few engine overrides. I think a lot of them are pretty specific to our game though, so I don't know if it necessarily apply, but some of the stuff for the like the sequencer scripting, we had to do a lot of engine overrides for the version that we were on, in order to expose being able to add different things or fix a few different bugs, stuff like that, to make it so we could do all the generation I showed you before. And I actually got like a whole list of kind of all the different changes and everything, and I got that together and I sent that over to one of my contacts over at Epic, and I believe that as of, I think you said 425, Joe, like a lot of that was implemented. So
because there's a lot, because we were also behind a little bit in terms of what was going on. So we don't want to conflict with stuff that's on the current build. But we at least offered it as where we felt like it was something that was more universal. We were like, this is something that could be beneficial.
So not quite a pull request, but they got some of the things that we had found, and I know they have implemented some stuff, so it's gotten better.
You've also made some various posts about things on the forums as well. I believe too, when we found things or when we've had questions about how things were coming along, more proper ways to go,
bugs and stuff like that. So.
But we've done an awful lot with Sequencer, and it's we're always excited to see what new toys come in whenever we do an upgrade. But certainly because of the custom stuff we do, it's always a very serious consideration whether or not we are ready to upgrade.
Being just one engine version behind is still a really good feat for something that's so far in production like this.
I mean, thanks. That's on Nolan and Zuko.
Well, luckily we don't have too many engine overrides, or the stuff we do have is pretty separated, so that it's just kind of like adding in. So we do the engine upgrade and then just throw in our stuff again. And it's I think at this point for us to do an upgrade, our last upgrade was maybe a couple days total through testing and everything in that.
But
now
it's
a little more than that. But
we're gonna have basically like a 2-week period of letting the tech settle, because there's always something.
This time, definitely if we do another one at this point, now that we've released and everything too, we'll be really careful. This was all pre-release, and I was enthusiastic with hey, we'll be okay. Just let's just upgrade.
But code-wise, you're about right. It is that quick. For 424 to 425,
maybe.
That's a scary one because
there's a lot going on.
There is. So I kind of on the same topic, I did see another question come in. They said for sequence generation, are you using Python for automation or editor utility blueprints? We specifically are using Python, but the way that Python works with their plugin is everything that Python has access to is all blueprintable stuff. So anything that you do in Python, you could do in Blueprint if you want to, if you don't want to learn Python. I will say Python is a really easy language to learn. It's probably I think it's one of the better first languages to learn. So it's a good good area to start with. But you could make an editor utility blueprint for generating those sequences. That would definitely be possible. We just don't. So
cool. I think Victor, we're coming up close on your timeline here, right?
Yes, we are. One more question came in that I thought was pretty good, a little bit related to the art style. They were curious if you're applying border shaders to your assets, or if everything is artistically designed that way.
I can take this one.
Go for it. Yes, please do.
So we do this a pseudo approach. So we do have an actual outline shader, but we can't rely on it too much. It's just not. There's plenty of outline shaders out there that are really good. Ours is kind of pretty quick. We kind of found like 1 or 2 tutorials and went with it. But the main thing is this is what the game looks like without the outline shader. So you can see the shader itself is doing a nice like finishing touch, but there are still actual line work. There's a lot of line work still happening on the 2D assets. And then the 3D assets themselves still have line work too. What's interesting about the 3D asset approach is that we aren't using textures for a lot of the bigger stuff for the line work. We're doing it all with vertex color. So if I were to actually go in and mesh paint this, I believe it's the blue channel that we do stuff with. you can see I can paint like the line work to be on my asset. So we model everything with and take kind of like the triangle cost.
What? You might cut out for a sec.
Yeah, you gave me another heart attack. I thought my interface crashed again.
yeah, your mic just cut out. You said you take everything and we do, and then that's what
yeah, so when we're modeling the assets, the larger ones, because we've realized that the smaller ones, like the boards, we probably should do with texture, just because the line work shader doesn't MIP very well. So you do run into an issue where you kind of get a bit of aliasing. But the bigger stuff we model in actual extra geometry. So you can see here we have extra stuff around the corners of things, even if it is like a flat corner.
And that's one of the few scripts you actually do outside of Unreal, because we do, these are modeled in a traditional
we have
thing.
One main Maya script, and we made it right in the beginning, and we've been using it since just to apply vertex colors in a specific way for our process. And I think if I went to RGB channels, you can kind of see what it looks like here. So it's just using that to apply the actual line work on bigger 3D stuff. And that saves us a ton of extra time when it comes to making very customized stuff and not having to do textures for everything. Once again, iteration time, everything.
Iteration time, yes, because textures are, they take time, but use them where you need to, because with a game like this, the art style is built around the fast iteration.
Yes, Jill, our technical artist, wrote that script.
Yeah. Any other questions, Victor? I know we're
I think
kind of
that's
at the
it.
end
We're
here.
running
So.
up on the end here. Yeah, no, I need to do my little outro spiel. But this has been super exciting. I'm very happy that you were able to come on the stream and show off this. It's definitely something extremely original that I've never seen or experienced before. So big props to you, to all of you and the rest of the team, which I think a lot of them seems to be like there in chat. So I think Wordy, give a little shout out to everyone from Terrible Posture Games who helping out in chat today, answer all the questions. If this was one of the first times you were watching the stream today, we stream every week on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm saying every week, almost every Thursday. There are a couple of weeks of the year that I think we all need to be off, but almost every Thursday. If you want to know what's coming up in the future, the best and the first place to figure that out is on the Unreal Engine forums in the events thread. That's where we post all of the announcements of who's coming on the stream. You can also see the schedule on our Twitch About page. Sometimes a little bit later updated, but it will still be there. There were some people mentioning in chat earlier at the stream regarding transcripts, and I do want to mention that all of our live streams are transcribed manually, and we put up the captions on YouTube. What's also cool is that actual transcript file, we upload that to Box, and you can download that in case there was something, say you were watching maybe on your second monitor, and you heard something and you want to go back and watch it later when the VOD comes up. You can actually download that transcript file, search for keywords, which is Control-F, and then find the timestamp in it where we discussed that. So as of right now, there can be captions there saying these exact words, and if you search for, I don't know, custom game controller, you'll be able to find a timestamp for that. I just took the first thing that is on my desk.
That sounds like an awful lot of work for somebody to set up, but that's very cool.
It is semi-automated. However, when it comes to the discussions that we have, there are a lot of technical terminology that sometimes the automated software doesn't even know that word exists. Sometimes, game dev slang as well, that can be spelled in an interesting way. And it's important sometimes to know, what the word actually is, because if you're learning and you're just sort of trying to put your headspace in this realm of game development or interactive playable sitcom development, there are a lot of words that you're just not familiar with, and it's really important to be able to sort of get that terminology first, and then now you might know what to Google for, right? And so big shout out to Courtney, who's doing all of our transcriptions. And this goes, I think it backdates almost over 2 years now. We have transcriptions for all the streams, and also if it's difficult to hear the stream for whatever reasons, the transcriptions can help you there. We are still looking for countdown videos, and so if you take 30 minutes of development, record that, fast forward that to 5 minutes, and send it to us with a non-composited logo, so your logo, but not composited into the video, you might end up becoming one of our countdown videos, and we add a little bit of nice music to that. Other than that, make sure you check out our communities.unrealengine.com meetups page. There are no in-person meetups right now, as you probably understand, but there are still virtual meetups happening among these groups. And so go check out and see if you can find a group close to you. If you cannot and you're interested in what it entails to becoming a meetup group leader, there's a button that says Become a Leader. Just go ahead and fill that form out, and we will probably get in touch with you. Moving on, make sure you follow us on social media. Forums are a great place to let us know the projects you're working on. That's also what goes into the project spotlight, the community spotlight, at the beginning of the stream. And I think with that said, special thanks once again to the team from Terrible Postures, everyone who's on stream.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Oh,
Yeah,
James, every time. I'm hopefully you'll be able to continue producing, a whole 8 seasons of 3 out of 10. But I am excited to see what kind of interesting things y'all come up with in the future as well.
We've got wacky plans.
I bet. I mean, I think chat can also tell that there's definitely no shortage of crazy ideas at Terrible Postures. So it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us, though. This has been fun.
You're so welcome. Stick on the call just for a little bit, but for all of you out there, I hope you stay safe, and we will see you again next week when I have Richard Cowgill from NVIDIA coming on talking about new technology. So until then, bye-bye, everyone.